In this video, I'm going to talk about comments in Java. Comments are there for the convenience of the programmer. They just describe your code. It's the responsibility of the individual programmer to comment on his or her code. That being said, it's not mandatory. It's just a good practice. In fact, compilers will simply ignore all the comments while compiling the code. All the gray text in here will be ignored by the compiler. These are all comments that are meant for developers. So you shouldn't be the only person who understands your code. You also need to think about the other programmers who will come and take a look at your code at a later point of time. Even they should be able to understand. And one way to convey what your code is doing is through comments. Now there are two types of comments. One is for the programmers who is going to take a look at your code and possibly make modifications. And the other is for the programmers who will not be able to take a look at your code but can use your code. Let me explain you what I mean. I'm initializing a couple of variables in here, and I've mentioned the same thing as a comment in here. X and Y are variables and are initialized here. To make a single line comment, you need to use / like this. However, if your comment is spanned across multiple lines like this, then you need to enclose them within /* and */. Now these two comments that I've shown you are for the programmers who is going to take a look at your source code and make modifications. By the way, I have just commented on this initializing the variables. In real world, we usually don't comment on such simple lines. We would usually comment on methods, constructors, and objects that usually a programmer is not aware of. Okay, moving on. Now the second type of comment is documentation comment. This is a little tricky. Let's say I wanted everybody to use my class, use the functionality I'm providing. For example, I wanted somebody else to make use of the method I write. But at the same time, I don't want anybody to make changes to my code or copy my code. How do I handle this? I'll simply compile this code. I get a .class file. I'll share the .class file to everybody, and they'll be able to create an object of this class and then call this method, whatever. But since they cannot take a look at my source code, how would they see the comments inside it? They cannot. Compiled version of the Java file will not have comments anyways. How to solve the problem? How do we tell the programmer what we're doing in the source code? Is through documentation comments. For documentation comment, they start with /" and ends with a / with a star in each line. And there is a specific format that you need to follow when it comes to documentation comment. We can also use the tags like this. All the tags will start with @ symbol. You will see in a minute why we have tags. In order to generate documentation for this class file, we need to use a tool called Javadoc. It comes with the JDK. You don't have to install it separately. Just as Javac is a compiler, Javadoc is a tool that will generate the documentation of your program based on the documentation comments you provide. That tool will generate a HTML document which you can share it to anybody that you wish. So let's try to use that tool. You need to open a command processor and navigate to any directory that you wish. This would be the directory where our documentation files will be generated by the tool. And all you have to do is use this tool Javadoc and then give the complete path of the Java file. To get the complete path, you can simply go to properties of that file and you find the complete path in here. You can copy that and paste that over the command processor. Let's go back. Let's get inside this folder and make sure nothing is there in that directory or the folder. By the way, I use mix of terms like directory or the folder. They both refer to same because usually we programmers use Linux system and the folder in Windows is directory in Linux. Okay, moving on, let's run this command. Let's go to that directory, open this HTML file. If you're not aware of HTML, that's fine. We're going to talk about it in our future videos. Let's click this Java comments. We have a description of the class. This program will demonstrate the use of Java comments. List of constructors that this class is holding. Currently it's the default one, and since we didn't provide any documentation comments for this constructor, it's showing nothing. But we do have documentation comments for method, addition, and then the signature of that method, a quick summary of that method. Using annotations, we have described the parameters. Now you can observe why we have annotation. It will just give a proper separate section dedicated for that parameters. And the returns annotation, here's the description for it. Third-party programmer who's going to use your class file to use the functionality can take a look at this HTML document and get a sense on what these methods or constructors are doing. Let's go back. And do take a note that we can also use tags in here. These are HTML tags. Again, you might not be aware of HTML. That's okay, we're going to talk about it. So that's it. Oh, but wait a minute. Since the documentation comments is not of utmost importance, I'm not going to go deep into this because I feel it's not worth it, at least at this point of time. When you enter the mainstream, you'll be forced to do documentation comments anyway, so it's not really worth spending time going deep into this. We have a mountain of other topics to be covered and understand, so let's not waste time in here. But just in case, although I'm not recommending, if you wanted to go through all the description of Javadoc and go through and understand what are all the tags that we have, then you can get inside this link. Here you can see the introduction of it. You also have a tool, doc comment checking tool. This will check to see if your documentation comment is in proper format or not. It's really important that you give proper formatting, or you need to follow certain guidelines while providing the doc comments. Otherwise you will see your text not getting populated in here. So it's always good to use this tool, because in mainstream you'll have a book of documentation in each source file. So it's always better that you run your file through this tool and then see if there are any formatting errors. It takes a lot of time to manually verify the documentation comments and see and guess what's going wrong. So this tool will definitely come in very handy for it. You can also go through all this description and all these tags in here. We've already used this param tag, the return tag, etc. Alright, see you in my next video.